Hello there everybody, and I want to say a big thank you to all of the people that have stuck around over the last year, and also I want to say a big thank you to all of the new subscribers that have joined in my absence. Today I wanted to bring up something that affected me a couple of years ago, and I think this is important to bring up because even though it's unlikely, some other people might have something similar happen to them at some point in the future, whether it just starts up out of the blue or they've moved to a new property and they seem to be having issues. What I'm referring to is back in early 2014, January to be exact, I had a few encounters with an entity, and I never got to find out this entity's name or what exactly I'd done to annoy it. And, you know, some people are going to turn around and say, well, this is why you shouldn't get involved in the paranormal. But the thing that I need to get people to understand is this happened prior to any involvement with the paranormal. This started up entirely out of the blue, you know. I'm not the sort of person that goes around doing Ouija boards or anything like that. This is just something that started to happen without any particular logical reason that I can think of. So, back in January of 2014, don't remember the exact date, but I remember it was a Saturday because it's a day that I go into town. I'm in my bathroom, I'm just getting ready to go. To give you a little bit of extra context here, I'm in the bathroom doors open, bathroom windows open. I can hear parents and their kids in the gardens opposite us, presumably playing with the toys that they got for Christmas. And while I'm in the bathroom getting ready, I'm mid-thought and basically thinking to myself, right, I've got to go into town, where do I need to go, what do I need to get, and afterwards, where would I like to go? And while I'm in the middle of that thought, I started to have something unusual happen. That, like I say, just there in the middle of the thought, and all of a sudden, completely out of the blue and out of thin air, I hear a very unnaturally deep male voice. And you'll have to excuse my French, it's words not mine. All I hear, in a very spiteful, malicious tone, is bastard. And I've heard these kind of things, not swearing, but I've heard voices come out of thin air over the years. And so, you know, you kind of get to a point where you're not as fearful of them. It just makes you feel a little bit surprised. So, I'm standing there thinking to myself, well, it's a little bit unusual. I had a bit of a chuckle about it, and I just went about my day. I continued getting ready. I went out to town, and that was it for about a month. I didn't experience anything else, and I have to note that there was never a feeling of physical presence whenever this happened. It was just a voice that would come out of thin air. And pretty much every month for the next year and a half, I would just have one particular day where, like I say, completely out of nowhere, completely out of thin air, I would hear a groan or a moan, and it would burst out of thin air. And there was occasions where other people heard it. There was occasions where if my cat was in the room, she would hear it and she would start looking round for the source of this noise. One particular month, I was recording a YouTube video for a channel I used to have, and the setup was I had my old vlogging camera, I had an external microphone set up, obviously for better sound. What I didn't realise is I'd used that camera for a few days prior, forgot to charge the battery, so while I was recording this video, the camera goes off. And when I saw that the camera had turned itself off, I decided I'd come back to the video in a bit. I'd get up, I'd feed my cat because she was meowing at me. Pardon me. So I crossed the room, and I'm about to open the door. The cat's in front of me. She's looking at me, meowing. When out of thin air behind me, I just hear this typical groan. Once again, you just think it's a little bit strange, so you go on with your business. Came back into the room later, realising that I hadn't turned the microphone off, and I did catch this thing on the audio. Now, to give you a bit of context about the clip, you're going to hear a few things. You're going to hear the sound of an office chair being knocked, you know, the wheel. That kind of caster wheel noise. You're also going to hear some plastic sliding, I can't remember what that was. But then you're also going to hear a low male voice. So I'll play that for you now a few times. the second from last night, I was reading an ebook on my tablet before going to sleep about 3 o'clock in the morning. And once again, usual groan comes out of thin air. And at the time I realised, hang on, that sounds a little bit different. Why does that sound different? And then it clicked. It was being muffled by the sound of the double glazing. So this thing was obviously somehow on the opposite side, the other side of the window. Whether that means it was either flying or, floating, or it was holding on, standing there, I don't know, but it was interesting nonetheless. So that takes us finally to the last night. Similar kind of time, just gone to bed. I had been trying to sleep on my back, which I don't really find very comfortable, so I've switched over onto my right hand side. My left ear is facing up, and as if somebody has bent down towards my ear, all I hear in my ear is two very simple, very direct words.
Get out.
And as I mentioned previously, there isn't so much of a fear factor, it's more of a surprise factor that you tend to get after a while. But the issue is now it's starting to reveal its true colours. It's one thing to shout out bastard, it's another thing to moan or groan. But those aren't very direct things, and saying that when it said bastard, that could have been directed towards anyone. Now it's saying get out in my ear. And so I'm thinking to myself by this point, look, I need to do something about this. It's showing its true colours now. But the thing is, I'm not religious. I never have been. Even through doing this for a couple of years now, I've never really seen anything or heard anything that would truly make me think that religion was real. So I just did what felt natural. I took 30 or so seconds to really just put myself in a frame of mind where there's no trace of that surprise anymore, there's no trace of fear. Really just try to bring up those feelings of you are protecting your property. Bring your intentions in line with that. Breathe, get into a more balanced state. And I just said afterwards, I don't know who you are, I don't know why you're here, I don't know what exactly it is that I'm supposed to have done to upset you, but for whatever it is, I apologise. My intention in life isn't to offend anybody. But with that being said, now I need you to understand something. This is my house, and in order for you to live here, there are 3 simple rules that you would have had to follow. Respect me, respect my family, and respect our property. And I'm afraid you've just broken the first rule. You're no longer welcome here. Please leave. And beyond that point, everything stopped. I didn't have any issues. It's now early 2017, no problems. What was quite interesting about this is probably about 5 months later, I was round my friend's house, and when my friend and his family are at home and I go round there, typically it's kind of like a story swap meet, because his family and he himself have had a lot of paranormal encounters, and so have I. So it's kind of like we get into that mode where it's like, this happened to me, oh that's quite interesting, well this happened to me. Before I mentioned anything about what I've just told you, his mum started telling us about something that happened a good while ago. So, to put this into context, she had had quite an abusive relationship with another family member of hers. I don't really know what the situation was there, and that's for her to know and us to not know. But for a while they were experiencing some pretty bad smells in the house, sewage, death type smells, and they basically just put it down to being the plumbing, which is understandable, I get that. And this would happen on and off, and eventually one night when the smells were back, I think there was a couple of them sat in the house watching TV downstairs. So from the empty part of the sofa next to his mother, out of thin air, they just hear a voice, and all they hear is, "What do you think you're doing?" in a very sneering tone. It's very loud. And she pretty much did what I did, albeit not in quite as much of a polite way. And I quote, "Get the fuck out of my house." And it did the job, it left. And I think when people are in a position where they feel helpless, these entities tend to feed on that. You know, they're not anywhere near as evil as they try to make themselves out to be. There is a video that I want to make, not so much about spirits, but everyday human life in regards to the sheer levels of fear that we're exposed to these days. Because we really are living in a culture of fear. All you've got to do is turn on the news and learn about all of the different attacks that are going on around the world. And the way that this is pushed towards us, with all the press that these people get, is that these people are pretty much untouchable monsters, and that nothing can be done about them. And of course, when you feel helpless, and you're being told this, it's just compounding the problem and making it worse. I think the only two reasons why these particular spirits left us alone was we were able to put aside that fear momentarily and say, hold on a minute, listen, this is my property. You don't call the shots here, I call the shots, and I'm not going to stand for this. And typically you'll find that with bullies and people like that. You know, they love it when you don't feel like you can protect yourself and ultimately let your guard down and let them do whatever they want. But as soon as you really take a deep breath, step back and see the situation for what it is, and you realise, hang on a minute, there is something that I can do about this, things can turn around very quickly. So without making this a longer video and rambling on for way more than I need, I think it's time to wrap this up. I want to thank you all for listening to me sit here and talk to this camera. I don't know whether I rambled, but regardless, I just wanted to get this video done while I had some time. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you very shortly with more videos. Cheers.